Hey, Joe Martin here. You've seen our commercials over the years, and you may be wondering, what's in it for me? Well, ITI Technical College has been selected by Forbes magazine as a top 32-year college. But even more than that, the reason we do this is you. Our tagline is, for a better life, and we mean that, for you to be able to have the life you've always dreamed about, to do the things for your family you've always dreamed about. And it can begin here, where we are dedicated to your success, because here at ITI,
This is Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag, and I'm Lee Feinswag. We're in our 24th year, if you count Sports Monday and Sports 225, and the only way that could happen is, well, it's my show.
My best friend, Lee Feinswag, look at the Christmas.
Sports 225 is brought to you by Breck. And now, me.
Well, you know what I mean when I say herding cats? I mean, you know, the expression is exactly like what you think it is. And that's what it's like trying to pin down Ross Dellenger to get him to come on Sports 225. I got him laughing already. Ross Dellenger used to be the LSU football beat writer for The Advocate, did such a great job there. He since has moved to Sports Illustrated and SI.com and will soon be leaving Baton Rouge. And I had to get him before he left because you're a treasure, sir.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
it's the new job takes me places a lot, it seems like. So it seems like during football season I travel twice a week, and during the off season I travel probably every other week or so, I guess. So I'm going on the road next week and the next. Got Tulsa and then Oxford. So I'm always on the move, I feel like.
Well, before you get to that, so Ross's wife, Elizabeth, who goes by Elizabeth Crisp at The Advocate, she got the job as the Washington bureau chief, or
correspondent,
correspondent for The Advocate, and so they're moving to D.C., which is a great thing.
Yeah, we're excited. I knew we'd probably always end up there, you know, based on her career. That's kind of always the pinnacle of, I guess, a political reporter's career is there. So I knew she was good enough to one day get there, and so here we are.
Yeah, and what a different mindset that will take, huh?
Will.
I can't even imagine what it would be like to cover American national politics today in today's world and today's climate.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
There's going to be half the times, honey, it's okay.
Yeah, lots going on there. She's excited, I think, about, you know, going into that environment. Finally, you know, I think she's always wanted to do it. So going from the local level to the national level. So kind of like I did, you know, it's different, you know, it's an adjustment to like the daily beat, because she won't be as much that, you know, so right. It'll be an adjustment for her as well. You know?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things I want to talk to Ross about, of course, National College Football, which is doing for SI, but also, you know, thoughts about things locally. But he and his wife are collaborating on a book about LSU football, and that's a real interesting project.
We are, yep, 100 things every LSU fan has to do before they die. So it's 100 chapters. Each chapter is a thing you have to do, see, experience, you know, at LSU. And it's like 85% football. Probably there's some things thrown in there for baseball, of course. There's a few things for basketball. And then there are some just like Baton Rouge things, you know, whether restaurant or bars or things like that.
Yeah, and you had to personally experience some of the restaurants and the bars. You know,
we do. Yes.
Got to do that.
Yes.
But give me a couple examples of a few chapters in there, a couple of things that maybe struck your fancy.
Yeah, well, you know, we kind of separated the chapters in categories. So we have like people of LSU. We probably have 25 of them. You know, people like Skip Ertman, Les Miles, Nick Saban, Ed Orgeron, and there's a chapter on each of those. You know, restaurant and bars like the Chimes, things like that, walk-ons. Things to do like visit Mike the Tiger's cage, you know, and go to a game in Tiger Stadium in general. Alex Box Stadium, I think, is on there. So things like that are kind of chapters, and there's just a little stories about each, you know.
I think that'll be way fun. I mean, after 5 years on the beat, you got a good handle on those guys.
Yeah. Like I was telling you earlier, I don't even have to pick up the phone sometimes to write a chapter because I know the thing so well. So it's been easier than I thought. I just got to find the time. It's time that is tough, just to sit down and actually do it, you know.
In your time on the beat at LSU, what was, and you've written a couple of really good LSU stories since, but I'm going to ask you before then, your favorite story about LSU football during your time when you were at the Advocate?
Goodness, my favorite. You know, I probably had the most fun working on the story about Ed Orgeron when he went back to coach at Ole Miss, the chicken on the stick story. Went up to Oxford. You know, he
and that
had,
was the damnedest thing. People stopping at this gas station to get
it's
chicken on a stick
it's a
because you
Chevron, I think.
You threw it into this story.
Yeah, well, it started that the week of that game. So it was his first year, it's 2017, October 2017. It's his first year as LSU's full head coach, and they were going back to play at Ole Miss. And the Monday presser before the game, he mentioned the chicken on the stick, and I was like, oh man, you know, here's a story. So I walked out with him and talked to him a little more about it, and he told me where it was and everything. And so 2 days later, I'm up there interviewing the person at the gas station that was there and used to serve him chicken on the stick when he was at. She's still there, and interviewed her. You know, took pictures of the chicken on the stick. You know, and it became this big story of Ed Orgeron's return. And I wove it into a story about how he was hired at Ole Miss. So I talked to Pete Boone, the AD of at the time, and Robert Kayat, who was bizarrely in the hospital that week, but still took my call from his hospital bed to talk about hiring Ed Orgeron. So that was the most fun that I probably had doing a story, you know, and it was one of the more proud stories because I think it came out like you'd want a story to come out. And, you know, it was one of those stories you spend like, you know, 4 days working on, and you spend like probably 50 hours over those 4 days working on it, staying up till, you know, 2 a.m. each night. So it was fun to do, though.
And you got free chicken for life whenever you go to that place, probably.
Yeah, it's gas station chicken, so it needs to be fresh and hot. Let's put it that way. So if it's been sitting in that warmer, you don't really want it.
You can follow him at Ross Dellenger. You can read his stuff at si.com, and if you still subscribe to it, it's called Sports Illustrated. People might forget that, you know.
There's some kids that don't know what that is.
No, they don't.
So
I got covers from the old days. All right, I'm Lee Feinswalk. He's Ross Dellenger. When we get back, we'll talk some football.
Hi, I'm the human dislike button. You may recognize me as the guy who enforces rules at Breck Parks. Check out my amazing presentation. Did you know? Motorized vehicles are not allowed in Breck Parks. Sales and solicitation are prohibited without permission from Breck. And my favorite rule, keep Breck Parks clean by placing all trash in trash cans. Come on, you can do this. For more information about these and other Breck rules, please visit breck.org/HDB.
Back on Sports 225, hanging out with Ross Dellenger, formerly with The Advocate, now with Sports Illustrated and SI.com. You had to go to basketball recently. Not something that you thought was going to be in your repertoire.
No,
but,
you know, I figured when the NCAA tournament rolled around, I would be doing some basketball, but I didn't really think I'd be doing a whole lot of regular season basketball. But when you're in the backyard of LSU and all that stuff's happening there, you certainly drive the 3 miles and start kind of digging around, I guess you could say. So it's been interesting.
I thought 3 things could have happened when the story broke about Will Wade. The first one was when he met with F. King Alexander and Joe Oliva, that he would tell them, look, my lawyer says not to say anything. I don't want to say anything until I go to that trial in April. Are you cool with that? And they probably would have said, okay, we're cool. Keep on coaching, and we'll just hold everybody at bay. Second scenario is I'm innocent. All of it's, you know, baloney. I'm clean. They go, okay, you're our coach. We stand by our coach, and we move forward. The third thing is he says to him, no, I'm guilty of sin. It's going to come out in the trial. Sorry, but, you know, I'd like to keep coaching. They go, I'm sorry, we got to suspend you, and then we'll figure it out on the back end. The fourth scenario was not one I considered, which was he doesn't even go in to meet with his bosses.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's any industry and in any employment. I mean, if my editor, if I did something, you know, say I got arrested or something, if I did something that would kind of disparage the company that I work for, my bosses say, come in and come talk about it. We got some questions that need answering. And I lawyered up and said, you know, I'm sorry, I can't come in and answer any. I'm probably getting fired. You know, I'm probably getting fired. So I I don't understand. Obviously, the fan base, we saw it at the game.
They don't get it because look,
they don't understand. I don't know
free
why.
will Wade. Okay, you can free will Wade. It'll be about 5 years when the NCAA says he can coach again and show cause. That's the first thing. The second thing is, fire Joe Oliva. You got lots of reasons to want to fire Joe Oliva long before this. But that decision that was made by F. King Alexander and Joe Oliva may not even have been made by them. It was announced by them. They didn't do it in a vacuum. There were lots of lawyers involved.
Yeah, it's not a decision made by one person. And I feel like, a lot of the fans think it's maybe a decision just made by Joe or just made by King or something. But there's a group of people. I mean, I wrote a little bit about it last weekend. But the Board of Supervisors, the LSU Board of Supervisors, is a powerful group of people. There's 16 people there. They hire and fire. They have full authority, and the chairman of that board has just about as much power as anybody else at LSU. And I think that it's this decision on this high of a level is made by a group of board members in addition to Joe, in addition to King, and that's kind of how it works. I don't think Joe Oliva pushed the red button here, alone at least.
Well, the other thing too is that they didn't fire him. People were like, okay, well, why would you just suspend him? Well, here's why. So a story we saw the other day that talked about there's a bonus for him for winning the SEC. They can't decide if he gets the bonus or not because is he the coach, is he not the coach?
Right.
That's just one minute example of how complicated his contract probably is with the buyout clauses and, like the Marx Brothers and the sanity clauses, and everything else. Because it's not just that cut and dry. They've got to figure out he's going to get fired or he's going to have to resign. It's going to be one of the two. He's never coaching at LSU again. But how that contract is settled, at what point do they fish and cut bait? How much do they owe him in a settlement? What does he owe them? What bonuses does he get? That's why he's not fired.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, also they really like him. I mean, they hired him.
That should have been, regardless of what. I don't know how. I love Kermit Davis Jr. from Ole Miss. Think the world of him. Did a nice job this year. But how Will Wade's not the SEC Coach of the Year is beyond me. Yeah. Unbelievable job. No matter what you think, and no matter what extraneous circumstances.
Well, they should tell you. I think obviously his reputation nationally in the industry. He wasn't on that group of 15, I think, finalists for Coach of the Year, Ray Smith Coach of the Year.
Yep.
He didn't win the SEC Coach of the Year. There's reasons for all that. I think that his reputation in the industry is not what probably fans here believe it might be. And
well, let me take that a step further. As long as you're on it, I mean, I had this conversation with somebody 6 months ago, and I told him, I said, look, going into this year, in my opinion, he's going to jump off of this year if they're as good as they think and move on to another job. And I said, because this was a quote from somebody who I consider to be very well connected. The word on the street is he's cheating his ass off. It's not me saying that, I'm just repeating it. But that's not unlike what you've heard too.
Yeah, that's the reputation, and that's why he's probably doesn't land on some of those coaching things this year, the Coach of the Year stuff this year. But that said, Joe Oliva and King and them, they hired this man, and they really liked him, and he wins, and so I think part of the reason they suspended him is they really do want to some way keep him, but I mean they like him. They want him to continue. I think they were had resigned themselves to kind of riding with him, riding this out. But when you don't come in and talk, I think they were kind of hamstrung at that point.
Well, Ross, I hope that your name, except for the byline, never appears in the same sentence with subpoena, wiretap, and FBI.
No.
Not good. You don't want that. And same for me. When we get back, we'll talk college football with a national college football writer. That would be Ross Dellenger. Follow him at Ross Dellenger. Read his stuff at SI.com. I'm Lee Feinswag, and this is Sports 225.
Hi, I'm the human dislike button. You may recognize me as the rules guy for Breck Parks. Sometimes the rules slip past us, so I put together this amazing presentation. Did you know? Golf practice is only allowed at designated golf facilities. Firearms, explosives, and weapons are not allowed on Breck property. Metal detecting is allowed in some parks, but go to Breck's website to learn more about this and other park rules. For more information, visit breck.org/HDB.
back on Sports 225 talking to Ross Dellenger. Tell me what your new job is at Sports Illustrated, because you seem to have a lot of leeway, but what's interesting was your first big story was about LSU.
Yeah.
Well, of course you live here.
I know a lot of my stories were about LSU. It's kind of part of that transition from being a beat writer, wherever you were a beat writer at. It's you know, you always kind of, if you're still there, especially like I was, still in the city, you kind of drift toward them. And then, you know, it helped that LSU was pretty relevant this year, at least to the Alabama game. They were pretty relevant, so that kind of helped me. It's funny, I got my my top like 15 stories as far as traffic on our website. And I think, you know, about half of them were LSU centric, and the top one was the Kelly Orgeron story, which is one of my first ones over the summer that I worked on. Yeah, but now moving away, I'll be branching out a little more, I guess now, you know.
Well, you're going to be in D.C., but I mean, you travel nationally.
Yeah, and it's you know, it kind of stinks to move out of SEC country. Because I love it down here, and it's easy geographically to get to some of these SEC schools. But at the same time, flights out of Baton Rouge and flights out of New Orleans too can be kind of tricky and expensive. So flights out of DC, I've found even already are much easier.
Two major airports. You can also drive down to Baltimore.
Yep. So
I know from
excited
experience.
about that. Yeah, so that'll be good.
Who's good in the Atlantic Seaboard region right now? I mean,
well,
you're hoping, you know, like Maryland, I thought had a chance to be relevant.
Yeah, well, I mean, Maryland certainly has. There's intrigue there with all what's going on. There's a new coach. One of my first things when I get up there probably is to go out there. I think their spring game is the week after I move in up there, so
you ever
it kind
been
of
on
works
their campus
out.
by chance?
No, no.
They
never
have
been
an
up there.
indoor football facility that is a Taj Mahal.
Really?
Oh, it's big time. They put a lot of money into athletics, and they foolishly got into the Big Ten, where they can't compete in almost any sport.
Yeah.
But they're committed.
Yeah.
Or should be committed.
Yeah, that'll be one of my first things is to go up there. You know, I'm not far from like the Carolina, you know, North Carolina, Mac Brown and all them up there. I think I'm like a 4-hour drive.
How about Mac Brown going back to North Carolina?
I know, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. It was a bizarre hiring year with Les and Mac and all that.
Well, you mentioned I was going to ask you, so what did you think of Les Miles taking the Kansas job?
I mean, I was surprised on both sides. I was surprised that Les would take that job and stop receiving $133,000 a month from LSU for doing nothing, to go and take a rebuild of what is probably the worst situation in major college football. But I was also surprised that Kansas would hire a 64, 65-year-old to rebuild its program. So I was shocked, and I didn't believe. It's one of those weird things, Lee. I did not believe it until I pressed tweet on us breaking it. I mean, it was one of those things I had such a hard time to wrap my mind around. Is this really happening?
Yeah.
And then you get a certain level of source, and it's like, okay, all right, well, I'm going to go with it then, you know. And it was bizarre, but that's kind of how it happens, I guess.
And then Mac Brown going to North Carolina. I mean, those are two. I mean, Mac's not a young man either. I would say Mac is.
No.
If he's
Mac's
not
older.
70,
he's 67,
is
I
he?
think, 67 or 68 maybe. So yeah, I mean that one made a little more sense just because he had been there, and it's obviously North Carolina is a situation that isn't in the same as Kansas, but it was still surprising that North Carolina would go that direction.
North Carolina's had a lot of great football players, but very rarely great football teams. I did spend a day with Mac Brown. You remember when Chris Sims and Major Applewhite were the two quarterbacks for Texas? And I went over there and spent time with a couple days over there. It was a USA Today freelance story at the time, and got in and talked to Mac. And Mac's very engaging, very interesting, warm guy. Loved talking to him. And then, of course, that whole story was Chris Sims doing really well on Pro Football Talk in the mornings, and Major Applewhite little up and down.
Yeah. Mac. It's funny. Mac actually coached my dad in college. He was his position coach at Southern Miss. He was a receiver. So it's funny they go pretty. My dad has some Mac Brown stories. He loves Mac. So everybody seems to when you get around him.
What position did your dad play?
Receiver. Mac was the receivers. He might have been the receivers. Either he was the GA and he was over the receivers, or he was the receivers coach. And he's got letters from Mac Brown. I don't know if he's still got them, but he's got letters from Mac Brown and all that
See, I didn't know this about you. So you have a football lineage.
Yeah, my dad was a receivers coach or a receiver at Southern Miss, and he's probably on his 35th year maybe, or as a high school football coach. So yeah.
Where?
On the Mississippi coast. He spent a little time actually in South Louisiana. He worked at Holy Cross for a little while. He worked in Morgan City at Catholic High. And then he served as head coach at Pope John Paul for a few years too. And then when I was about 7, we moved to Biloxi, and he left Pope John Paul for some schools over there. So.
Well, I did not know that. Of
Yep.
course, at Southern Miss, there was a Southern Miss coach who came to LSU once. You might.
Yes, yes. Didn't work out real well, did it?
Hudson Hallman. He was something.
Oh, I thought you did. Yeah.
That's his real first name.
Oh, really?
Hudson.
Really?
Yeah. Curly Hallman. Oh, I mean, I liked him the first time I met him. I also walked away from that first meeting going, "This is the worst hire ever made." I knew.
Yeah.
I knew. And then before he ever coached his first game, there were so many instances where I just saw him dealing with the media or had his staff dealing, and I was like, "There's just no way."
Yeah.
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 But
I remember, I was a student at Mississippi State, and I was a student reporter, and Curly was Jackie Sherrill's secondaries coach, and he yelled a lot. Put it that way. He yelled a lot. So at that point, it was well past his. I guess he was 8 years probably removed from LSU at that point. So.
any stories that people need to check out on SI.com right now that you got up there that you're glad they did?
The latest is the basketball scandal stuff. The Les Miles story, when I went up there and spent a day or a couple of days with Les in Kansas, is still buzzing on our website. So that's one that it was fun to do, and Les is just so colorful.
I haven't seen it, so I'm going there myself.
Yeah, it was it was hard not to write a good one about him. He's so colorful and everything. He's such a character.
Good deal. He's Ross Dellenger. Follow him at Ross Dellenger on Twitter. Read his stuff at SI.com. I'm Lee Feinswag. We got time for one segment left on Sports 225.
Rec parks close at dark.
You want another?
I think they'll pass. Amplified music and sound is prohibited without permission from Breck. No alcoholic beverages on Breck property. Smoking of tobacco products is not allowed. Use of fire is prohibited except in grills. Gotta remember, Breck wants you to have fun, but in the right way. For more info, go to breck.org/HDB.
Coming down the home stretch of another Sports 225, hanging out with Ross Dellenger. Go to sports225.com for all the Showtime listings and updates on what's happening here, and to see archived old shows on our Sports 225 TV YouTube channel. Thanks to Kevin White for pushing the buttons today and making the show happen. So, National College Football, which you're about to enter into the big spring practices, training deal. What's the big storylines for you in your mind and things that you're going to personally keep an eye on?
Well, we talked about a couple of them. The old guys back in it. Mac Brown and Les Miles. It would be interesting to see how they fare their first years. Another storyline would be Texas. They kind of surged with Tom Herman late last year, and I wonder where they are. We're going to see really early in the season where they are when LSU goes to a visit. That's a huge early season game. And then of course LSU. They kind of got all the pieces, and the schedule sets up much better than it did this last year. Sets up much better this year for them. And then Miami, Manny Diaz, new coach down there. He's just kind of flipping the script there, what Mark Richt did. So all those things I'm watching, and of course, Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa, Alabama and Clemson. Will they meet again?
I mean, there's still, all the focus has to be on the top on those two programs still, don't they?
Yeah, and I mean, they got, two of the best quarterbacks maybe that college football has ever seen. I mean, they're
That's strong.
It is strong, I know. They're already talking about, NFL teams already talking about tanking for Tua, It's incredible. Of course, Trevor's got 2 more years. And I think you're going to end up seeing that Trevor's going to emerge as a really, really strong quarterback after spending some time with him and people around him. I think he's going to be really, really good in the end of it. And Tua's already pretty dang good. So
it's amazing how these young kids are ready and come in and can do what they do at the highest national level.
Yeah. It's a lot of starting them early. It's a lot of the private quarterback coaches and obviously the switch to offenses in football the last 8 to 10 years. The spread, it just shows them off more than ever.
thank you, sir. I made the herding cats joke, but I'm so glad to have gotten Ross Dellenger on the show. Good luck to you and Elizabeth on the move.
Thank you.
Don't lose any cats along the way.
Yeah,
Of course, we'll keep
try
reading
not
your
to.
stuff at Sports Illustrated and SI.com.
Yep, I won't be leaving. I'm sure I'll be back in Baton Rouge from time to time.
And when you do, I got a spot for you.
All right.
All right. Thanks so much. All right. Thanks for watching Sports 225. I'm Lee Feinswag. Good night. We're fading out. Bye.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story. At Spanish Town Mardi Gras, things can get blurry. See the mowers marching, prizes fill the sky. This Spanish Town Mardi Gras, may it never die.